Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Priceless podcast, which is also a video cast. Welcome to the first episode of this ongoing podcast. That's at least what I hope for. If you need more information about this podcast, or you would like to see all the show notes with some links that we'll put up, you can visit our webpage that you can find the links in the show description. So visit the webpage and there will be all the other recordings that will come soon. I hope to have many interesting people, and today I have one of them with me. I invited her to join me, and I'm so happy that she agreed to be with me today. She's very interesting to me, so that's why I invited her. And she's from St. Petersburg, but now she lives in Paris, France, where she is married. She studied all sorts of things, journalism, theology, and is studying still in Paris, and it's called Greta MTI 94. So she is the co-president of the European Forum of LGBT Christian Groups. She used to be there, the coordinator of the Eastern European Christian Groups, and her name is, and I'm going to say it wrong, Tatjana Lehatkova. So before I say it wrong again, I will ask her to say her name and just say hello. Hello, Tatjana.
Hello, Mikhail. Hello, everybody. My name is Tatjana Lehatkova, and you pronounced it almost correctly, better than the most of Russians.
Okay, Lehatkova. Lehatkova. Yeah. I did it. I'm so excited. Okay, good. And thank you for... I feel better right away that I can pronounce it better than the Russians. So let us start with a difficult question, but what would you tell the audience and the viewers? Who are you?
First of all, I'm a human, and I'm a child of God. Like many people, I have different identities. I'm a specialist, I'm a Christian, I'm a lesbian, I'm Russian, I'm migrant, but all of them, it follows after my identity as a child of God.
So before I go on, I actually want to ask you, because I'm really interested, what are you studying right now? I mean, you're a journalist and a theologian, so what are you becoming now? Like, is your aim to become everything there is?
I just finished my studies last 10 days ago. I had my exam and I passed it successfully. Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And now I'm a web developer.
Oh.
So yes, all this stuff which we are using now, all these applications, I'm able to produce something like that.
Oh, so should we do a short commercial? Like, if you need an application, there is the web developer. Just contact Tatjana.
Not up to this level.
Okay.
Let's stick to our agenda.
Okay. Is there anything you can do, like, for the people? Just offer them, like, why not? You're here. So would you like to use this space to offer something?
For the upcoming 6-7 months, I'm already booked by one company in Paris. I will be working as a web developer there. So
Okay.
I will be busy already.
Okay, so people, leave Tatjana alone. She's busy, so find another web developer. Okay, so I'm actually not sure. Have you mentioned your sexual orientation?
I did. Yes,
did.
I'm lesbian.
Okay, so But before I go into your sexual orientation and how this will, like in your journey of self-discovery, acceptance and everything, I would like to ask you about your faith background. I mean, you already talked about that you consider yourself, or that a major identity that is very important to you is being a child of God. So can you tell us more about your faith background and maybe where you are now? Like, are you going to a church or something?
Yeah. As many people of my generation who was born at the end of Soviet Union era, I was born in a secular family. I was baptized at the age of 2 or 3, just like many of us, and it was just following the tradition, following the ritual. Many people, they baptize their children now just because children are more obedient after, or they are more healthy, even if parents are not Christian themselves. So my family is still quite secular. After I grew up in a small city with many Orthodox churches, I visited them several times, but I didn't feel any particular. But at the age of 16, I moved to St. Petersburg to study in university. And one friend of mine, he took me to his church. It was a Pentecostal charismatic church. I started to read Bible, and here I got the grace of God, the grace of faith. And after that, I started to look for the parish, for the church, where I could feel at the right place, so to say, where I could feel that my heart belongs to this community. And I had found one. It was a Lutheran community in St. Petersburg. And since that, I visited many churches, many Christian groups. I wrote my university diploma work about Jehovah's Witnesses, so I visited them also. My theology paper I wrote about Mormons, so I know them also a bit. And but now sometimes I visit American Cathedral here in Paris. It is an Anglican Episcopalian church. Sometimes we go to French Reformed Church, but I consider, like a real parish, I consider, of course, the community of the European Forum. Yes, there are my brothers and sisters. There is
so that's your
family.
home church. Your home church you really feel that you belong to.
Yes, that's true.
Nice. So how? I mean, I can hear your journey of faith and visiting different churches. How was your journey of self-discovery, discovering yourself as a lesbian woman, also connected to faith? I mean, that's a very specific journey. So how was your journey?
Yeah. Well, I came to faith, to the Christianity at the age of 16, and I discovered myself as a lesbian at the age of 19. So I already had some Christian background. But there is a kind of cliche that if you are gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender and Christian, you have to reconcile your faith and your identity. For me, it was not the case. When I discovered that I'm a lesbian, I said, "Oh, thanks God, thanks God! Finally, I understand why I don't fall in love with men like every my female friends did, and finally, I understand what is going on with me, who I am, and how things are going with me, and I really say that I'm a lesbian by the grace of God." Thanks God for that. And moreover, after many years, I'm 34 now, and when I was 25, 26, I understood that being lesbian made me better Christian. I have a tendency, I like Pentecostal churches. I like charismatic churches with this dancing, singing, with these emotional worships and all kind of stuff. And if I had been heterosexual, I could join such a church. I could marry, have children, and I could teach people that there is man and woman. They are created to each other, and if you are not like that, you are a bad person. You are a sinner, and if you don't follow these strict rules, you are a sinner. You are not a child of God, and something like that. But Christianity is about that every person is a child of God. Whatever it is, a homeless person, whatever it is, a migrant, whatever it is, a criminal, it is a child of God. And as I'm a lesbian, I couldn't follow these strict traditions of Pentecostal churches, in spite of the fact I love them very much. And it made me to seek for other ways. It made me to seek not a Christian tradition, but God himself or herself. So yes, I'm a lesbian by grace of God, and thanks him for that.
So what was your experience? I mean, this is really interesting to me because it's not the everyday story of an LGBT person, and I met a lot of LGBT people who really struggled with their faith when they realized that, they're gay, lesbian, trans, and so on. So maybe it's a stupid question, but how come it was so natural to you? Like, was it your surrounding? Like, what, do you even know what played this important role that you felt so free and just saying, "Thank God, I'm a lesbian"?
I think I have only suggestions about this because families are different and stories are different. But I think that the major role it was about my family, because my family is secular. I didn't grow up in a Christian tradition. I didn't grow up reading Bible every day. I didn't grow up with following the Word of God as it is written in the Bible. I came to the Christianity quite late. I already was 16. I finished high school. I was in university, in a good one. And I think I was smart enough to understand that literal reading of the Bible, it is not something, first of all, fruitful, second, traditional. Because a literal reading of Bible, it is quite a recent thing. It is about 120 years. And also, of course, the mercy of God. He is very merciful to me, as I see throughout my history.
Yeah. So how was you said that you were part of the Lutheran Church. How was this Lutheran Church looking at what was their stance on LGBT people at that time?
Well, first of all, there are several Lutheran churches in Russia. And in St. Petersburg, there are two major churches. One of them is Lutheran Church of Russia, which is supported by German Lutheran Church. We call it German Lutheran Church, so to say.
Yeah.
And there is a Lutheran Church of Ingria, which was supported by Finnish Lutheran Church. I don't know what is their relationship now. And I was visiting the Lutheran Church of Ingria, Finnish base, so to say. And this is the most conservative church. They have constant contacts with the Synod Missouri, Synod Wisconsin. It is a Lutheran, conservative Lutheran community in the United States. And it is one of few churches which issued a special declaration about homosexuality, where they said that homosexual people cannot take any responsibilities in the church, and all this blah blah blah. To be honest, I didn't come out in the church. I didn't come and say to my parish, to the priest that, hello, I'm Tanya, you know me, and I'm a lesbian. I was thinking about it. But at this time, for me, it was easier to leave the church and just stop going there or not talking about it with them. I knew some LGBT people within the church. As far as I know, they are not there anymore. But I just want to say that LGBT people exist in every church.
Yeah.
Talking about German Lutheran community, German-based Lutheran community, Lutheran Church of Russia, as far as I know, they are more liberal at this question, but still not very open, so to say.
Yeah. It probably depends what country they're in, I guess, because the Lutheran Church in Germany is actually very open towards LGBT people, especially in some parts of Germany.
In Finland also. And as far as I know, Lutheran Church of Ingria, they don't communicate as much as it was now with the Finnish Lutheran Church, just because of two questions. It is female pastorship, female leadership, and recognition of same-sex marriages.
Yeah, that's what I thought. If you would have told me guess, I would have guessed. Women and LGBT. Yeah. So how... I wanted to ask you a question, but I realized you already mentioned that. So was there anything else that helped you on your journey of self-acceptance? Like what was something that was really important to you during that time? I mean, you mentioned the family, that you already had like one strong point that, didn't make you question yourself, and the connection between faith and being a lesbian. But was there anything else that was very important for you on this journey?
Yes, there are 2 points to mention. First, I came out as a lesbian at the age of 19, so it was 2005. It was still era without Facebook or social media, so people just gathered together, drink together and communicated together.
Yeah, to all the young people, there was such a time without Facebook, YouTube, and all other social media. Yes, Instagram too.
Yeah. Oh my God, it was nice.
Yeah.
And no smartphone at the
yes.
age. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
So we had, so to say, a lesbian point where a lesbian were gathering together. It was near Kazansky Cathedral in St. Petersburg. So it was a place to socialize and to socialize as a lesbian. And we still have a lesbian club in St. Petersburg. At this time we had more. I don't know what about now, but it was a particular time when we had many LGBT clubs and many lesbian parties and many lesbian cafes. So it was a cool time. So it helped me to understand who I am and to build these connections with other lesbians and just to see how it is. Yeah, it was nice. And of course, what helped also, St. Petersburg is a birth city, so to say, of the group Night Snipers. At this time, it was considered like the most famous lesbian group, and their songs, it was a kind of lesbian indoctrination.
Okay.
Confirmation. Yes. Catechization, so to say. And also it was a time, it was a bit later, 2009, I think, 2008, 2009. It was the beginning of LGBT activism in St. Petersburg. I mean, official, or not so official, but offline LGBT activism, because, for instance, our group Nuntiare et Recreare, it exists since 2000 or 2001. So it existed at this time, but it was only the website and no meetings. But slowly, step after step, some LGBT organizations appeared, some LGBT communities appeared in St. Petersburg, and we started to do different things. Still, local organization organizes Queer Fest. Queer Fest in St. Petersburg, it is like a Pride Week, but without a Pride. So it is exhibitions, it is cinema showings, it is different meetings, workshops about human rights and LGBT rights. And I think it was 2008, the first side-by-side film festival. It is a famous LGBT film festival which takes place in St. Petersburg and Moscow and some other cities. And since 2010, I think we started to gather as LGBT Christians already. So we started to have face-to-face meeting. And it was a very important point for me because I felt this lack of meetings. Because in Christian community, I couldn't talk about LGBT issues. In LGBT community, I couldn't talk about God, about Christian issues. But within Nuntiare et Recreare, it is our St. Petersburg LGBT ministry, we were able, and we are still able, to talk about God, about spirituality, about Christianity or any other beliefs. We are not only Christian ministry. And about our LGBT experience, so to say.
Is this organization still existing, Renunciare,
Yes.
Recreare?
Yes, it exists. Moreover, a few days ago, they organized an online meeting, Zoom meeting with Troy Perry, the founder of Metropolitan Community Church.
Oh,
so
great.
Yes.
So I will ask you to send me a link of Renunciare Recreare. I think it's very important that we also give people some options that they can look into. I hope that we will also have some people from Russia who would maybe see this video and maybe get encouraged. So find the link also in the show description.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let me ask you first, what about your faith part? Did you feel that you need something there? And did you have anything that supported you with your faith and that was connected at that point with being a lesbian? What was helpful there for you, if anything?
I think it started in 2010 when we started to have our face-to-face Nuntiare meeting. And since 2011, I was a part of organizing committee of Eastern European LGBT Christian forum or conference, like we call it now. It is a space to meet for mostly Russian speaking LGBT Christians from all over the Europe and some other regions from time to time. The first meeting I participated in, it was in 2011. It was in St. Petersburg, quite funny. We had many threats and police came and it was bomb calls.
Wow.
And it really helped. And I remember in 2011, when we had our meetings in St. Petersburg, we also welcomed a wonderful person, Diane Fisher. She's from Metropolitan Community Church from the United States. And I remember when it was this fake bomb call, so we left the building. It was a huge hotel. We left the building, other people left also. And we were talking with Diane, and I asked her, Diane, did something like that happen with your church in the United States? And she said, oh yeah, of course, our first church was burned down.
Very encouraging.
Since that, I was volunteering for many LGBT projects, and we had many things. We were blocked by homophobic guys. There were physical attacks and a lot of stuff like that. But this sentence was really helpful. This sentence supported me a lot. And first, I understood that it could be worse. Always it could be worse. And second, I saw that if the United States, very Christian and very traditional country, made such a progress throughout this time, we have a chance. We'll have a chance.
Yeah, I can relate to that. That's very encouraging to see that someone came from that point to a very different point nowadays. Yeah. So tell me, at least from what I'm hearing, is Russia from several years ago. So Russia then and Russia today. What would you say? What's the difference?
In terms of LGBT issues?
Yes.
Well, on the one hand, we can say that things are getting worse and worse. Because, yes, since 2013, we have this stupid law about LGBT propaganda.
Yeah.
And since now there are this sentence that marriage, it is a union between man and woman, it is added to the constitution. Also very interesting.
So did they decide on that? Is that
yes,
decision made?
it was this national voting. It was not a referendum. It was national voting about constitutional amendments. And now, yes, it is accepted. And now there is a new project which might prohibit transgender people from marriage. So it is really a huge issue. So on the one hand, we can say that things are getting worse and worse. But on another hand, I can say that we never had so strong LGBT community as we have now. We have bigger discussion on LGBT issues, in the society than we had before. We had more different opinions than we had before. For instance, recently it was on the one of federal channels, these propaganda channels, it was a talk show about LGBT issues, and they put in the air one famous Russian singer. She's very young, so I don't know her. And she made such a pro-LGBT speech, which we couldn't imagine a few years ago. And also, maybe 1 week ago, we had a speech of parliament deputy of Oksana Pushkina, where she, in the State Duma, where she said, do we really now consider LGBT people like Untermensch now in 21st century? A few years ago, it wouldn't be possible. We couldn't imagine things like that. Yeah. So yes, on the one hand, things are getting worse. On another hand, things are getting better. So I think Russia, in these terms, Russia goes like any other country. The more discussion you have, the more different opinions you have, the better it comes. But to be honest, I'm not able to judge the situation in Russia because I don't live there anymore. 2 years, and I'm in a quite safe situation in comparison with others, of course.
Yeah, and I will get to that question soon. But thank you for sharing this about Russia, because this is really encouraging. It almost seems that what they're trying to kind of eliminate any LGBT propaganda is actually, at the end, it's the opposite is happening. Like, people are really starting now to talk about this issue because they're making it a much bigger issue. And yeah, I mean, people move on and have much more experience, and they know more LGBT people nowadays than they did before. So I think it's a different time, and it's very encouraging to hear positive things, about Russia, because unfortunately most of the news we hear are negative, unfortunately. So I'm glad, and that's what this show is about, because we also want to bring good news and some positive and inspirational things for people and bring hope with this. So you started to talk about France, that you live in France and that the things are different. So let's compare Russia versus France. What would you say? What is your experience?
Well, in general terms, France is much more warm than Russia. So maybe it explains many things. First of all, I should say that I'm infinitely grateful to LGBT activists in France who made changes possible, because marriage equality was legalized in France just a few years ago. I think it was 2015 or 14, I don't remember exact dates. Before it was Pax. Pax, it is kind of civil marriage, but a bit limited. It is also available for heterosexual people. But still we can see a lot of homophobia and transphobia and hatred in the society, because almost every month we see news that this or this trans or gay person were beaten up just because of the fact they are. So it exists, and in this term, it's the same like in Russia. The reasons are different, because homophobia in Russia, it is mostly because of this prison culture. In France, it is different. But at the same time, of course, on the level of legal recognition, situation in France is much, much better. And I know that some LGBT activists, and it was in 70s and it is still are, many LGBT activists, they are challenging the idea of marriage, because they say that it is outdated and we should overcome it, and there should be different unions. I agree with that. But at the same time, I should say that marriage equality is an important goal for us. Because even if France didn't have this marriage equality, maybe I couldn't be here, because moving from Russia to Europe is quite difficult. And I moved here to be with my wife, and only because of marriage equality, it was possible. It was possible. And I feel protected here because I have wife, and just in case she has me, and I know that I will be able to go to hospital to her. I will be able to do some stuff for her because we are married, and it is really important. It gives a lot of social protection, and it feels awesome. To be officially married.
Yeah, I actually, what you said about how important it is that there is marriage equality, and some people say, we don't need to call it the same way. But I really liked what one person said, is that words have a meaning, they have an image in our head, what it means. So, just calling it a different name, we can do it, but it will never mean the same to people, because they will have a different image, and to really get the equality, you need to call it by the same name, so that it gets the same kind of rights and freedoms that marriage that marriage has. I lost the words. That kind of is part of marriage and how marriage is perceived. So great. Now I have a question. I already asked you what inspired you back then when you were kind of figuring yourself out. But what inspires you today? What is important? Where do you get your inspiration, your motivation, maybe some strength when you need to power up again? So what inspires you?
Good question. It is a very good question because my inspiration, my motivation is changing now, and it is a very interesting searching and interesting process. I will start a bit earlier. One day, God created Earth and sky.
Okay, so that early.
Yeah. Well, like many people who want to have success in this world or who want to serve God the better way, I read many books about motivation, about how to be organized and about how to be better than before. And we know that many Christian authors are writing these books, but it just didn't work. And last time it led me to a serious nervous breakdown. So it was really difficult, and now I'm starting to understand that all these books are about nothing, and all that we need is a relationship with God. And I'm trying to build this relationship because it's not an easy thing. There are not so many books about it, unfortunately, and I try to find my motivation there in this conversation. Last weeks, thanks to this regime of self-isolation, I started to attend a Quakers meeting, a Russian-speaking Quakers meeting of Moscow Quakers community. We gather together in Zoom, we switch off our microphones, and we sit together in silence half an hour. Wonderful reason to meet, just to be silent. But these silent prayers, when you are silent and you are waiting the speech of God, you are not talking to God, you are listening to God. It is something which brought me the biggest discoveries these last weeks. And I just started this way. I still have more questions than answers, and it is very interesting. It is where I try to find a motivation, try to find an inspiration. So it is about my relationship with God, and second, of course, it is my family relationship with my wife. She is Christian also, she's Protestant also, and we talk a lot about God, and our relationships sometimes are not easy, but we are growing together, and it is also a source of inspiration for me. And also I love cooking.
Yeah, that can be very inspiring.
That's true.
Yes, thank you so much also for there was a moment of huge vulnerability, so thank you for sharing with people and just being human for us. I find that very inspiring. I always like to connect to people, and I like what you're saying about listening to God. And I think in general, as humans, I think we need to listen a little bit more. Just be quiet and listen, either to each other, to God, to whatever is important to people. Even if people don't believe in God, just sit and listen. I think it's really important, and it can give a lot and be very inspiring. We can be surprised sometimes what we hear when we are just quiet and listen.
That's true.
Yeah, so thank you so much for this. So let's go a little bit into activism, like I mean, you have a rich activist life. at least while you were in St. Petersburg, you were pretty active. I mean, now you're active, and you were active the last few years through the European Forum in many things. So what do you think is really helpful in activism? You know, if there is someone who wants to maybe start activism, be more active, what do you see as really important within activism?
Talking in terms of motivation, so to say, in terms of what to do or how to start, for me, it was very helpful that I was surrounded by nice people. And, I started activism not because I wanted to go out and to say, hello, I'm a lesbian, just take it over. And so it was not the case. I was fed up with going to the lesbian clubs. It was not interesting. And this activist community, it gave me something different. It gave me LGBT community, which is non-club community. Of course, we went to clubs together after, but it was not the point.
Yeah.
And it is really nice to gather with people and to do things together. It's really cool. And if you have people around you whom you would like to follow, with whom you would like to work, just start doing things. And it will work, and it will work out. So for me, activism was just a nice thing to do with nice people, and it was interesting, it was exciting, it was enriching in terms of experience. Yeah, that's something like that.
So from what I hear, the most important thing is to really have like a good core of connections and friendships with other people, and that's where activism starts to happen, kind of.
For me,
as a basis.
For me, yes, I know that there are some activists who are devoted to the idea. So they have idea, and for them, serving this idea, serving God through this idea, it is the most important thing to do. I know some people who like to work in NGO or to work in activist area. So for them it is important. For me, this people surrounding is important.
Yeah.
It is what I like.
I love it. I love it. Thank you. Thank you for saying this. So I would actually like to end with one thing, and that is that I would like to suggest people of different, I would like to suggest them different resources that could be helpful for them. So, you don't have to name all of them. I guess, since you study theology and journalism and are still studying and probably researching a lot, there are a lot of resources, but maybe something, if you would name one book or even documentary or whatever you would like to mention to suggest to our viewers and listeners.
For Russian speakers, I would suggest to visit our website nuntiare.org. It is the biggest collection of texts about LGBT, QI, and other stuff, and Christianity, Buddhism, Islam, and other beliefs. For English speakers, for people who speak English, I would suggest to watch movie The Boy Erased. It is about reparative practices in the United States. And another one movie, I don't remember the name, it was Bad Education of someone. It is also about reparative programs. I think we will add the link after.
Yes, we can. You can find the link in the description. Yeah.
It was a wonderful movie, also about reparative programs, but from female point of view, because the most of the movies like this, it is about boys, and this one was about a girl. It was very interesting. At the same time, I want to say something about it. When I started this activist way, so to say, activist path, I was translating and reading articles like what does Bible really says about homosexuality.
Yeah.
What does Christian Church says about sexuality? And there were many articles about, oh, it was different translation, or we can also translate this like that, or we can also translate this like that. At this point, it was interesting for me to do, but I felt absolutely empty out that because this literal Bible approach is very American. And it follows American Bible and Protestant tradition to read Bible and to search different meanings. And when this word is so important for you, so you have to dig it up. But often these attempts to reread the Bible in not always, often these attempts they look weak, and they look for me it looks ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so I think that you will find many articles and many books like this. It is a good thing to read them, but at the same time, if you feel empty of that, it is normal. We don't need to know all the translation of Malakoi and Arsenakoitai. It's not the thing we need.
Yeah.
We need a communication. We need a real talk with God. Seek for God and seek for His kingdom. And it is the only thing which can feed you.
Thank you so much. What a great closing of this interview. I am so thankful because I really enjoyed talking to you and getting to know you better. So thank you once again for being part of this first ever Priceless podcast. Who knows? Maybe we'll have you sometime again in the future. So is there anything else that you would like to add before we close this down, that you would like to say to our viewers and listeners?
I would like to thank you, first of all, because I think that this pilot podcast, it is a good beginning of a great communication thing. So thank you very much for this initiative, and you are very well prepared. I can say it as a journalist.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was nervous. I'm talking to a journalist. How is this going to be?
No, I normally I call myself a person with a journalism diploma because I actually didn't really work like that. And I want to thank all our listeners, all our viewers, and just God bless you. And if people will have some questions, if people will need some support, I think we can share some contacts and
yes.
Stay in touch.
Yes. Thank you for saying that, because if you want to get into contact with me, or it's very important for you to get into contact with Tatjana, you can contact us over our contact form on our webpage. So visit our webpage. The webpage address is below in the description. Thank you for being with us. I hope you enjoy this and that you will join us next time when it's time for the Priceless podcast. Bye, everyone.